Welcome to Buffalo Camp Day Recap. I'm Thad Brown along with Carl Jones. Day number 4 in the books for the Bills. They're actually going to get their first day off tomorrow, interrupting the middle of this camp. But it was, Carl, finally a good day for this offense. And it didn't start out strong. I think the first quarter, third of practice, you saw the same offense we've been seeing, issues with getting checks, penalties. But then late in practice, a lot of it, which was red zone today, Josh Allen just got on a heater. And it wasn't anything spectacular. He wasn't making crazy throws, but it was just, I'm seeing this coverage, so I should go here. I'm going to throw the ball there. I'm seeing this matchup. I'm getting a win there. I'm going to go there. It's just executing the offense. People talk a lot about how quarterbacks are amazing, and Allen has this throw where he's running right and upside down and throws the ball between his legs, somehow completes it. Really, the majority of successful offense is just, I'm going to make the right play at the right time. And Allen did a ton of that today. Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, Stephon Diggs. Really, Diggs was almost the guy who caught the least of these touchdown plays, but he was really, really good. 7 or 8 touchdowns in red zone. And we finally got to see not quite 100% of the Bills' offense, but something that was close to what we expected from this team as training camp began. Now, when it comes to the first team, one of the exciting parts of today's camp was what is becoming the continuing battle between Stephon Diggs and Kaiir Elam. Today, first rep of wide receiver versus DB one-on-one. Elam gets extra physical with Diggs. Diggs stops his route, goes nose-to-nose with Elam. They had to be separated. Diggs clearly thought that Elam had stepped over some sort of line drill-wise. Fortunately, we are blessed to have a former Division I corner right here that can kind of lay out everything that was going on and what the Bills did with Elam next that kind of gave you an indication of what they thought.
So the big knock on Elam coming out of school was he was a little handsy, a little grabby, right? He has all the tools. He's big, fast, and he can run. But the big knock was, grabbing a little bit too much, and that showed up in that drill. I believe, in those drills, you want to protect each other. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to compete. With no pads on, you don't want to go too far. And I believe, at least that's what Diggs, was yelling about. Elam took it a little too far with being a little too handsy and grabby. And it was probably evident with Frazier pulling Elam aside right after. And then later in team, they say, you know what, kid, we're gonna nip this in the bud right now. Let's put these boxing gloves on. And what the boxing gloves do for a cornerback, you can't hold it anymore. You got to just trust your feet. And I think that's the biggest misconception when it comes to cornerback play. Everyone wants to just put their hands on receivers, especially big guys, right? Because when you're a big, tall receiver, you want to maul the guy, especially a guy like Diggs who's much smaller than Elam. I want to maul him at the line of scrimmage and be physical with him. However, it's more about your feet. At DB, they teach more about feet, hip, hands. That's how you want to go, the rotation of what should move in that order. And I believe Elam needs to be more confident in his feet so he's less reliant on using his hands. But that all comes with reps, confidence. As a rookie, your 4th day out here, everything's spinning, you're not as confident. But it was very interesting to see that they put the boxing gloves on the kid, not in 7-ons or 1-on-1s, in team. So he's not trying to get embarrassed in team in front of all the reporters and all these fans. So they threw him in the fire with the boxing gloves on in front of all the fans. I thought that was a very interesting thing to see. Back in my day, we had the little boxing mitts on. Not the boxing glove. We had the little other mitts on. So not necessarily as clean as those, but it brought me back a little bit. And it was a fun exercise to hopefully nip some of Elam's grabbing tendencies a little bit.
Just to explain real quick before we keep going with the rest of our observations, there is an injury concern with, and you were talking about this before the pads come on, with a guy who's too grabby, that can be something the receivers would get concerned about actually sustaining an injury.
Oh, 100%, especially guys like Diggs who are quick and shifty and trying to get in and out of routes. Any sudden movement where you're grabbing a guy, pulling and tugging on a guy, because at DB with no pads on, it's very hard to play, especially at the line of scrimmage. So if I'm grabbing you just a little bit like that with Diggs trying to cut, that's how knees, with ankles, with no pads on exactly, and that's where knees and ankles, shoulders, that's where that stuff comes in a little bit. So that's where Diggs, being the vet, is like, yo, there's a way to practice. And obviously his 4th day out here, he doesn't know how to practice just yet. He's just trying to compete, get his reps out there. But he's trying to tell him, like, hey, young blood, there's a way to practice and go about things in this league. The way you are doing it isn't the way. So let me show you how to do it in my Diggs way of being a little in your face about it.
In my Diggs way, of course. All right. Other than that, in terms of the smaller observations from today, a couple things I had. Khalil Shakir, his freight train of progress kind of stopped today. Didn't do anything wrong, but he did get a rep with the first team. It was a very non-involved rep. Play was totally the other side of where he was. But at least we've seen him with the first team a little bit. Other than that, he had one play where Cam Lewis totally erased him in a second-team rep. So not a terrible day for Shakir, but he's had 3 really eye-popping days. Today was not one of them. A guy that did kind of pop to me a little bit, and I really shouldn't even talk about him because there's no pads on, Luke Tenuta, the rookie tackle, the late draft pick. Now, again, he's only on the second team, and he's probably on the second team because the Bills were missing 3 starting linemen today. But the Bills rotated a variety of ends against him on second team. He saw Boogie Basham, he saw A.J. Epinesa, he saw Shaq Lawson, and I thought Tenuta and all the reps I was watching looked pretty darn good. So a couple positives there for the Bills. Second team offense and third team offense, for that matter, still was the same as we've seen the first 3 days. Very, very not good. But no one's going to mind that because as long as Josh Allen's throwing dimes, we all good. Carl, what else you got here?
So it was telling early on. Ken Dorsey spoke to the media before practice today, and they asked him about about the slot receivers. And he only mentioned Jamison Crowder and Isaiah McKenzie, which coming into this camp, we thought there were a plethora of guys who could play that spot. Khalil Shakir, Tavon Austin, maybe even Marquez Stevenson, maybe he could slide in there a little bit. But he only mentioned those 2. Now, granted, those are the guys who are working with the one, so that's probably the only reason he mentioned that. But I thought it was very, very telling with Crowder hasn't been here at all, out here even at practice yet.
1 day and then 3 days missing practice.
Yep. And then McKenzie hasn't really done anything outstanding. He's just done his 1-11, doing his job. I don't think many drops, if any. Just doing his job, right? So despite all the, I don't want to say hoopla, but all the praise that Khalil Shakir has been getting, I think Dorsey's kind of like, hey, guys, it's early right now. Those 2 guys are at the top of the depth chart for a reason, and we're going to see how this thing plays out. But for right now, those 2 guys are the guys we trust most in that spot.
I always wonder sometimes, too, when you get the reaction to a coordinator mentioning or not mentioning a guy, maybe he's a little that strategic where if I don't bring up Khalil Shakir, maybe we can keep him under wraps as long as possible. But I think your point is correct. Shakir has barely played, if at all, with the ones. At this point, he's probably not top of Dorsey's mind. Someone who I'm pretty sure is top of Dorsey's mind is Gabe Davis. By the way, did we find out it is Gabe Davis now, not Gabriel Davis?
Not Gabriel.
Yeah.
Let's throw that out.
Gabe said that his branding people said that Gabe was better, and Gabe said, it's fine with me. I don't really care, but that's what they told me, so we're going to be Gabe now. And he did say that he actually prefers Gabe. His mom calls him Gabriel, so we're back to Gabe. But anyway, he's expected to be the number 2 receiver, and we've been talking a little bit about that here and there, about how ready he will be. Finally, the man himself addressed the topic today.
I don't know. I just feel like when it came to me, I feel like there was always more work that needed to be put in. Obviously, I wasn't in the best position for myself that I wanted to be in when I first got into the NFL. Even when I got into college, I feel like it kind of was slow for me as well. So being able to make sure I'm prepared to be able to take on this role and be the number 2 guy that people are expecting me to be.
For a quick injury update, what we saw out there, Roger Salfo was still walking around on the sideline. It's hopes that he'll be back within the next week or so. I think that's what Brandon Beane said, correct?
Well, he said sometime before the season starts, which next week or so might be optimistic there.
Well, then there we go. Then Ryan Bates was also out today. Trey White was on the bike, but it was also encouraging to see him coaching up the DB. Some of the younger guys, Neil, I thought they were doing a little thing after practice. I thought it was really cool. Wanted to get out there myself, but I'm washed up.
Well, what was the thing they were doing?
They were just working on some press technique. And actually, a lot of it was the feet stuff and making sure we aren't grabbing, which is important at this time of year.
Was Kyer Elam there?
Kyer was with on the other field with Poyer, actually. So he's still getting some vet work, but not necessarily Trey White. Yeah. And then Spencer Brown was also off to the side today, but he was not out there. So the Bills aren't too banged up at some of the keyer spots, but we'll see, hopefully, when the pads come on, how healthy they can be, because that's when things start to ramp up a little bit in that regard.
The thing with Bates is that his injury was new, so now you got 3 theoretically starting offensive linemen, Bates, Brown, and Saffold, who were not in. So the Bills today went with Tommy Doyle at 1 tackle, and the guards were Quessenberry and Greg Manns were the 2 guards today. So offense has been, kind of a jumble. Quarterback room, not so much. The Bills have a brand new coach there, Joe Brady, a guy that I'm sure you've heard of if you're any kind of football fan. He ran that unbelievable LSU team in 2019. Didn't work out in Carolina. Brady now has been a find for the Bills, and I got a chance to sit down with him very recently. Rising star to fired. This is the story of many a football coach. In this case, the story is Joe Brady's.
At the end of the day, our job, I didn't do my job well enough.
Brady's wild success with Joe Burrow at LSU did not continue as offensive coordinator in Carolina. Quarterbacks coach with the Bills is Brady's 3rd job in 4 years.
I know it sounds a little cliche, but I feel like I almost got kind of let go into a promotion.
Sean McDermott likes to tell a story about when he was a younger coach with the Eagles and how some older guys on staff would explain that he wouldn't be a real coach in the NFL until he was fired. McDermott never thought it would happen to him, but of course it did, just like Brady 2 years into his first coordinator job. McDermott says the most important thing is what comes next.
Two types of coaches, those that handle that and reflect and grow from it, and then those that maybe point the finger and say at everybody, everything else, and say, no, it wasn't me, it was that or them. And in this case, I think Joe has done a great job of reflecting and growing.
If you're being proactive in your own development, if you're looking for ways to, how can I improve, how can I grow, and just picking up little bits and pieces from everything. None of us are perfect, right? And so we're all trying to learn from each staff we're on, each coach, each players, and so it's been a great opportunity for me to be at a lot of different places.
Growing up in Florida, Brady was a huge fan of a college star Miami quarterback named Ken Dorsey. The fanboy didn't last long for Brady.
You've seen the football mind and the personality. I mean, it's awesome to work with.
Joining Dorsey's offense is maybe how Brady reclaims his own star. One thing I found very interesting talking to Joe Brady is that when a job opening happens in the NFL, most of the time we in the media say, all right, well, who did the head coach used to work with? Who did the GM, whoever's doing the hiring, who do they know? Who do they used to work with? And Joe talked about the fact that when he worked as an offensive assistant for the Saints, he went against Sean McDermott defenses. Then when he moved and joined the Panthers, he heard about McDermott and Bean and what kind of guys they were. It was wild to think about, kind of in this case, Joe Brady thought about when he was with the Saints, man, this guy just kicks my ass every week. I want to go coach with him, as opposed to he had to know him or have a connection there. So there's a lot of different ways to get a job in the NFL.
And it's crazy how the coaching carousel works. I remember in college during that fantastic 2019 LSU year, Joe Brady was like the next guru, the next Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. He's the next guy. We got to get our hands on him. And obviously things didn't work out in Carolina. So it's not like he lost that offensive mind in the past 2 years. So I think it is a benefit for Josh Allen to get a fresh set of eyes. Obviously, it's been the same system, going from Dable to Dorsey. But just from my perspective, seeing someone like Joe Brady, I thought that was the next Sean McVay 2 years ago. And then now seeing him in this room, obviously, if he can still bring those smarts to this quarterback room, I think that'll help out Josh Allen a lot.
Bill's offensive line has a new challenge this year. It's called Von Miller. Deion Dawkins talked about it today. He started off with classic Deion style, explaining that he talked to Sean McDermott today, and he said, Sean, so Von Miller, good signing. Thanks, bud. As if, this is going to be my life being put in hell for the next 5 months every day in practice. But Deion went on and had a lengthy explanation of why Von Miller is so good, and something we had to include for you right here.
And Vaughn is 33, but that boy is 23. He moves better than anybody on the football field, and you can sit there and watch. Like he's just a God's gift, truly, And football is what he was called to do. One of the things that he was called, and he definitely is continually to polish that golden star because it's definitely bright. He's more like elastic, like elastic. So almost like a rubber band, where like you would think if you pull it a certain distance, it'll pop. But he just doesn't pop. Like, he'll come off and just be like this and then come back. Like, how did you just do that? Like, I got my hands on you. You just moved your arm around me. Now I'm in front of you and you're back here, and now I'm playing catch up. Like, so the word that I would use is an elastic band or like a rubber band, because like he's just real springy and like real like slithery. Like it's so hard to really like put a name to it because it's just different. Like, there's certain guys. Or like an example, right? Like we're all like big and strong. So like if I were to hit somebody, it'll be like a boom. Like, and when you hit Vaughn, it's more of like a boom. Like where like where it's not like a, it's just like a glancing blow. Yeah, but it's just like, how did that not hit like how it's supposed to hit? Like it's almost like punching a punching bag. Like you hitting a punching bag, but the punching bag is moving a little bit, so it's taking away 75% of your punch. So it's just like, but hey, if I could block Vaughn, I could block anybody. Shoot, but he's really that good. He really is. And I don't mean to beat his horn, but he really is. And I can only give props and give him his respect and what he's earned, because he's earned that. And I've never played anybody like that. And Jerry, I thought Jerry was like, damn, like Jerry's grown, old and still good, but Vaughn is like Jerry times 4, and Jerry is already great. Like, it's just like, how many levels like of it is it? Like, but he's somewhere way up there.
One thing I always appreciate about Deion Dawkins is that no matter what he's explaining, mostly football stuff, but really can be anything, he's like Mrs. Gump. He always says things so I can understand them. I mean, he does a really good job of just communicating, whether visually or audibly, about a very unique and sometimes complex football item or technique. Carl.
Deion is always a great guy to listen to. I've only been here a year, and it just every time I see his interviews, I got to tune in because I know he said some wonderful bite. But who also gave a wonderful bite was Albert Breer yesterday. Thad Brown was able to catch up with him, and we talked a little bit about the rise of this Bills team, so to speak, and how it kind of compares to another team in the AFC East who did the same thing not too long ago.
I'm joined by Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated and the MMQB, who is here back at Bills training camp. You're a veteran of time here at Pittsburgh, coming back. Let me ask you first, though. You're a guy also that's very familiar with the Patriots dynasty and that rise. Is there any similarities, and how do you compare what's been building here in Buffalo for a while versus how that one was built?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you look at the early years, the Patriot dynasty, you probably see some markings of that. Obviously, they won very quickly, so that'd be a difference that they won in year 2 there, but I mean, it really, like, you look at, like, a group that's in lockstep. It was Bill Belichick, Scott Pioli, and Tom Brady at the start in New England, and you see that here with Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and Josh Allen. So that will be, I think, one thing that matches up. The other thing is I think you look at, like, a roster that is starting to look very complete. And one of the things about New England over those years was maybe that they weren't outstanding everywhere, but it was hard to find a hole somewhere, which allowed the coaches to kind of build a team a certain way. And I think you're starting to see that here in Buffalo. The biggest position issue might be punter, right?
Right.
Like, so you get the feeling that there aren't very many holes here, which would be another similarity.
When you look at this roster, you talk about how complete it is. Is there something maybe off the beaten path, the Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Von Miller path, which you're looking at and thinking, you know, if this Bills team is going to achieve what they think and hope they can achieve, this is the guy I'm looking at that needs to have the big year?
Yeah, I think if I was looking at one area where, you know, I think things really need to sort of develop the right way, it would be corner. You know, and I think that they're good enough, they're deep enough on the D-line where if one of those or two of those don't pan out the way that they believe it will, they'd still be okay. Linebacker, they've got a lot of experience. Offensive line, they bring a lot back. You know, I think the receiver group is relatively deep. Running back, same thing. So, you know, obviously I think keeping Josh Allen healthy is number one, but the other piece that I think sort of has to come together for them is that spot at corner. And, you know, the question is, what does Tre'Davious White look like once he can get back on the field? And then what are you getting out of Kaiir Elam? You know, and I think if Elam comes and can be a really solid number 2 corner right away, and White is the player that he has been over the course of his career to this point, coming back off the ACL, you know, now I think you're looking at a team that's probably the favorite to get out of the AFC and go to the Super Bowl. So if there's one spot I think that's sort of pivotal in that way, it'd probably be corner.
The big fantasy conundrum with this team has been Gabe Davis. And how does he fit in? How many targets is he going to get? What kind of receiver can he be? Not necessarily from the fantasy standpoint, but it kind of leads into, you know, what his future holds for the near future this season. How good of a receiver do you think he can be? And maybe what's the outside Western New York take on where Gabe Davis ends up this year?
Well, I think there are probably a lot of people who are going to be drafting in the next 3 or 4 weeks that are pretty excited about him and probably think they're going to get him in the 4th or 5th round, and maybe they won't. You know, I think that the Kansas City game obviously had a lot of effects, and one of the effects was that there's a lot more awareness of Gabe Davis now. You know, there are 2 reasons why I think, you know, you look at him, and I think that as long as he stays healthy, then you can count on him taking another step forward. You know, one is he's more well put together now, and when I saw him out there, I mean, like, he looks bigger, which is crazy because he's always been a big player. You know, from what I understand, maybe close to 230 pounds now and really solid. So that's number one, is that, like, he's even more of a matchup problem than he was before. And then, you know, I think number 2 is the trust that Josh Allen has in him to be in the right place all the time. And, you know, that relationship, I think, is going to be a really important one as he moves into that number 2 spot. Obviously, you know, with Emmanuel Sanders now gone, there's going to be great opportunity there for him.
I know you're a veteran of camps here at Pittsford. What is the number one Rochester Pittsford thing you do when you come into town?
I guess go to Dinosaur Barbecue. That sounds like cliche, and I don't know. People will probably like look at me weird when I say that, but yeah, I mean, I got buddies that went to Syracuse, and so they'd always talk about Dinosaur Barbecue. So when I started coming to camp here, that was my way of going and getting it. And I'll tell you, I've had barbecue in the Midwest, I've had barbecue in the South, and it can stack up with any of those.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is high praise. Albert Breer from the MMQB and Sports Illustrated. Thanks for joining us.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks,
it.
Dad.
Yep.
Shout out to the Dinosaur Barbecue also as well. I'm from Cleveland, and I had it for the first time in Syracuse, and let me tell you that he ain't lying. It's real good. I need to make it back. Need to make my way back there real soon for those ribs and that mac and cheese. We might have to wrap this up because I need to get that mac and cheese right now. Okay.
I will say it warms the heart of this Rochesterian every time I hear somebody rave about things that we've already known and grown up and loved. Dinosaur Barbecue, golf, Wegmans. That might be the whole list, but whatever. It's still pretty good. All right. We're all done for today. We appreciate everybody for watching and tuning in. Again, the Bills are off tomorrow, so are we. We'll be back with Buffalo Camp Day recap on Friday. For Carl Jones, I'm Thad Brown. Remember to check us out on Spotify or at RochesterFirst.com. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you in a couple of days.